Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. Penn State goes 1-0 after their 46-11 victory over the Nevada Wolfpack. We are here to break down the game, talk about what happened, what we liked, what we didn't like, and also analyze James Franklin's Monday press conference and maybe a little sneak peek into FIU. Thank you for being here. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe wherever you may be listening. And also, please subscribe on podcasts. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How you doing today, Sean?
Not too bad, Corey. My foot is killing me for some reason. No idea why. But outside of that, doing pretty good.
All right. Well, if you are watching live on YouTube, you may see that we do not have Sean's video today. So you will only get to see my pretty and slightly sweaty face because there's like absolutely no airflow in this house at the moment. Penn State gets to win 46-11 over Nevada. I think everyone expected Penn State to win. They did not cover, which was something that I kind of hinted at, that I didn't feel confident that they were going to be able to do so. And they weren't. A little late touchdown didn't help there either. Sean, I'm going to go ahead and mute you until you maybe figure out some things on your end.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
See if we can figure out how to do that.
I muted myself.
Okay. So Penn State not able to cover and still got the win, but just a little sloppiness on defense late kind of let Nevada hang around, and credit Nevada, especially Chuba Purdy, use his wheels early and often in this game. And I think could be an X factor for their offense as they head into the rest of their season. But just not enough weapons around him. But he at times did cause some problems for the Penn State defense. Offensively, Penn State was able to move the ball effectively, and we're going to probably break down quite a bit today about that. But at times maybe made it harder on themselves than we had hoped. Did go perfect in the red zone, but did have to settle for 4 field goals. So, Sean, what are your initial thoughts as we begin this episode?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's typical of week one, right? There's some things to like, some things to dislike. I think when you go to positives, the night in Sutton, I mean, looked like it looked like the best defense player in the country. And then I think that one of the things that I think nationally there may have been more questions about, but not so much people that follow Penn State very, very closely. The receivers looked very, very good, especially Kyron Hudson, Trebor Pena. Trebor Pena had 7 catches. Thought he looked faster than people anticipated, than I anticipated. Thought Hudson looked good. I think that's catch along the sidelines. That's what we've been kind of waiting for from Penn State receivers, to be able to go and make a play for Drew. Just felt like that hasn't happened much in the past couple of years, except for Tyler Warren, who's obviously a tight end, but his receivers just haven't made enough plays for him. So that was really, really nice to see. But then I think what surprised me the most was Penn State was really, really had trouble running the ball. Especially Nick Singleton only averaged 2.4 yards to carry. So that surprised me a little bit. I don't think it's anything to panic about right now. I think just something to put a pin in. And if this continues to be a problem the next couple weeks, maybe there's a bit of a red flag moment. But I know these guys can play up front, and then I know the backs are good, so I'm not very panicked about that. But just like I said, that was probably the most surprising thing to me.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, Penn State ends up with 135 yards rushing, 3.8 yards per carry, and really that's only that high because Pena had a 13-yard run. Corey Smith had a couple decent runs. And Kyron Allen, who I think Kyron Allen is a perfect example that he's going to get his no matter what. 8 carries for 43 yards, 5 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Allen's longest run was 12 yards. Nick Singleton's longest run was 6 yards. Also, Drew Allar did some good things on the ground himself, too. So, all in all, not a great performance running the ball. And I think you can point to the offensive line. The offensive line struggled in this one. Not tremendously, but I think we, circled this offensive line as one of the best units on this team. And they did not look like one of the best units on this team on Saturday. Now, Nevada did some 5-man front looks. They were playing very bend but don't break. They were adding multiple extra defenders in the box to stop the run. But at the same time, there were missed assignments. And there were guys where they weren't supposed to be. There were a couple negative plays. There was a bad snap or a bad catch by Allar. Just a couple little things that they need to clean up, and I think Franklin will get those cleaned up. But I am with you, Sean. I would say a little yellow flag has already begun to wave as far as why they weren't able to be more effective on the ground with these two running backs and this offensive line.
I do wonder if part of it is Donko and Rucci working together on the same side of the line. Donko's playing guard now, as was predicted here, and Rucci at right tackle. Maybe there's some communication things that they need to get sorted out. I think that's one of the things that there could be some growing pains with. Sal Wormley played that spot the past 2 or 3 years now, and Sal's gone. And Donko's playing a new position, so I'm thinking some of it's just as simple as communication issues. Um, but yeah, and like I said, I would be more worried about that if the playoff run didn't happen last season. I think that's one of the reasons I'm not, sitting here panicked, but still, um, and maybe in a way it's kind of it could be a positive that it happened, just to show, just to put this just to put this on film, something we got to work on live, and we have 2 games to do it before we get to Oregon and the bye week. So it's definitely I think a lot of the issues are correctable, and that's the positive from it. um but yeah, nonetheless, they gotta, if they play like they did on Saturday, all of our wild dreams that we had, they are not coming true. But again, I'm not anticipating that.
The good thing to me is despite the inefficiencies in the run game, Penn State was able to win this game comfortably. And I know it's Nevada and they did enough on the ground regardless. But if this game was last year, there could have been some obvious, like, painful moments where they weren't able to move the football. The good news for Penn State is even though they weren't as efficient as they'd like to be in the ground game, they were able to throw the ball and have some consistency there. Drew Allar, 22 for 26. That's 85% completion, 200 yards and a touchdown. Ethan Gronkmeyer, 7 for 9 for 86 yards. He also had a rushing touchdown. So if you just kind of combine those statistics together, 29 for 35 for 300 yards passing and a touchdown, uh, that's fantastic. And so they were able to do enough, and maybe even a better sign is they were able to do that without Tyler Warren, like you kind of mentioned. The name of this episode is receivers for a reason. Kyron Hudson, 6 catches, 89 yards, and a score right before the half. Trebor Pena, 7 catches, 74 yards. He also had that run, like I mentioned. And then they got Singleton, Rappleyea, Dinkins, Denmark, Cam Wallace, Luke Reynolds, Devontae Ross, and Kyron Allen also all involved in the passing game. Spread the ball around. I think it was Donnie Collins, longtime friend of the pod, mentioned that at no point last year did they have this number of ball catchers in a single game. I think the best game they had last year was against Kent State, and they eclipsed that with the number of folks that caught a pass today or on Saturday in the first game. So, and I'm not saying let's just kind of crown the passing game as fixed, but as much as we might want to put a yellow flag on the running back inefficiencies, I think we have to feel a little bit better about where the passing game is, even though it's just been one game so far.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, the caution in that optimism is the receivers look pretty good out of conference last season too. And then the conference play started and they took a step back. I think one of the things that makes me more optimistic about this group, though, is we've seen Kyron Hudson play at a pretty good level at USC, which is obviously in the conference. We've seen Trebor Pena in a Power Four conference play really, really well. We've seen Devontae Ross, although albeit at a lower level, play at a high level before. So we do have that as opposed to what was here last season. So yeah, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about it. Um, and I think we were feeling pretty good about these receivers going into it, Corey. I think we had felt pretty confident that maybe we don't have the next Randy Moss here, but we don't really need that. We just need good players that could get open, that could run good routes, that have chemistry with Drew Allar. That was another thing that stood out to me is all these receivers. You'd swear they played with Drew for 3 or 4 years. You didn't see the hiccups that you'd previously seen with some other guys that were here that we brought in from the portal. Everybody seemed to know what they were doing. They were in the right spot. It didn't look like them and Drew Allar speaking different languages, and that's important, especially this early in the season.
Yeah, and Sean, I would even go a step further because I think you're exactly right with that. And in addition to that, uh, Drew also threw some anticipation. Even the pass that was incomplete that I believe Pena should have caught, it was a laser, but I think Pena should have still caught it. That ball was thrown before he was out of his break. The pass to Kyron Hudson on one of the dig routes that he ran was thrown before he was even out of his break. So I think that part of Drew Allar, I think you'd like to call it, throw receivers open. Allar improved on that despite or, in a vacuum from whoever the wide receiver was. It looks like there was some improvement made there. So really excited about that as well. And again, only week one. And you're right. I think some chemistry has, been able to shine a little bit there as well. I think the one thing that if you're going to knock anything on this offense was not converting in the red zone and stalling out. Franklin was asked about it on Saturday. Then he was asked about it again today. That to me was something that, well, A, if you can't run the ball efficiently, that's going to hurt you. B, they had a couple negative plays, some because of misassignments, some because of a bad snap. That's going to hurt you. And then C, I don't think they really got the tight ends involved as much. Franklin kind of mentioned that as well. The pass to Kyron Hudson that was a little bit behind him that I think also should have been caught technically. It looked like Luke Reynolds may have been open on a seam route there in the end zone. So you kind of combine those three things, those 4 field goals could have very easily turned into just maybe 2 field goals or just 1 field goal, and we're not even really having this conversation. So not even waving an orange flag here, not concerned whatsoever. But I think it all kind of stems back to some fixable things on offense that they can go back and clean up in the next week or two.
Yeah, yeah. The not converting in the red zone, I think that's largely a function of Penn State falling behind the sticks a little bit when they get in the red zone. We also went fast a few times, and I think Franklin kind of explained that a little bit. That Nevada, when you're playing against a team like Nevada and you're Penn State, Nevada, when they have the ball, they're going to try to milk as much clock as possible. So to combat that, Penn State thought, well, we should go faster. And I think that was the first bad snap I've ever seen from Nick Dawkins. And I think that's a function of just we were we were in a bit of a NASCAR package after Durant's interception, and then that killed the drive. There's another drive in the red zone where I think it was TJ Shanahan got beat two times in a row. The one play, Trebor Pena was open in the end zone. Drew didn't have time to see him, and he had to dump it off to Singleton. And then and then the next play or two plays later, Singleton got blown up in the backfield. So it was just things like that, just not executing well. But again, there are those things that are fixable, of course. So I'm not overly concerned. You just don't want to see that develop into a habit going into conference play.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to go to YouTube here. Shout out to Judy Seeley, who's watching live as she heads back from the beach. Also, want to give a shout out to Mark Kreider, who's listening and watching live on YouTube. And then Brian Burge on YouTube says Kyron Hudson already looks like the best wide receiver we've had in years. So Brian's already on the bandwagon, Sean. He's ready to rock and roll. He's a big believer in Kyron Hudson, and he's committed after just one game from Kyron Hudson. I will say this. I think, our buddy Higgins liked Pena a lot. I leaned a little bit more towards Hudson, but both of those guys looked great. Both of those guys are catching passes that looked really easy, especially those long out routes. Like Drew Allar hits those in stride, and it seems like it's not a big deal, but those throws are really impressive. I think Franklin even mentioned like those are NFL caliber throws that he's making look really easy. They're also not defendable, and so really good to see again the not just the rhythm, not just the trust, not just the fact that they seem to be kind of already working well together, but also the fact that Drew Aller is hitting them where they're supposed to be. So be very curious to see if that can be replicated against potentially an underrated FIU team next week. Other thoughts from you, Sean, that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I think when and I'm happy Franklin mentioned this today. The defensive end opposite Dennis-Sutton. I think that's something that we really have to get figured out. I mean, I know Franklin mentioned that Zariah Fisher wanted to play on Saturday, wasn't able to. So that tells me he's pretty close to being ready. I do want to see him get some snaps prior to Oregon, just because he hasn't played in so long. And the reason is I don't I'm not sure if those other guys are going to be ready to be starters on a team that you're trying to win a national championship with. Doesn't mean they can't contribute. I think they can, as long as they're in more of a reserved role. But I'm not, Jalen Harvey, I wasn't overly impressed with how he played. I thought Chaz Coleman played okay, but he went through long stretches where he wasn't doing very much, but then he flashed a couple times. Same thing with Devon Kamaju. So I think those guys are all going to be good eventually, but they're not ready right now. And maybe by the end of the year they will be. It's a long season, but I still have my doubts that they'll be ready to just from really a size perspective, that they'd be ready to be starters on a team that's trying to win a national championship.
Yeah, I think we're right that it's going to be by committee. Um, that being said, they're not there yet, right? I mean, they're just not. Now, the good news is, and it's probably a sin that we've made it this far in the episode, not spoken about Dennis-Sutton. Dennis-Sutton, if he takes over games like that, nothing's really going to matter. 2.5 TFLs, a sack, and 2 forced fumbles. Just very impressive. Scary. We have a fan question about that later, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But Zane Durant, Dennis-Sutton, they held up to their end of the bargain. And there were some good moments, especially from the defensive tackles. I thought the defensive tackles were far more impressive than, say, the defensive ends, if I had to compare them as far as the depth goes. But that for sure is something that we're a little bit concerned with. Franklin, made a point to bring up some of those guys. Ty Blanding looked good, he said. So they're excited to get Mason Robinson back, who did not play. Mentioned that Chaz Coleman was a little bit nervous and didn't get as many snaps as maybe they were hoping to get, but he looked good at times. Sean, I know you weren't necessarily thrilled with Jalen Harvey. I would agree with you on that. There was one play I thought he did some good stuff on, but he technically is your starter and didn't necessarily make any big splash plays or really win me over in any regard.
Yeah, and he is the older guy right now. I think he looks the part more physically than Chaz Coleman. I think Chaz Coleman still, even though he's over 245 pounds, I believe, but he still looks thin, and he's going to continue filling out. But yeah, but as far as you said about the defensive tackles, yeah, Ty Blanding, who, I feel like Xavier Gilliam's gotten a lot of hype. But I thought Blanding, especially physically, he just looks ready. I think Owen Wayfield got a lot of time as well, especially toward the end of the game. So I think they do have 4 or 5 guys at defensive tackle that they trust. It's just, the edge position. I do worry about that. But if Zariah Fisher is able to play, if we're able to get, assuming we continue to play in the playoff, well, just in the regular season, if we could get 10 games out of him, I think we'll be fine. But yeah, but like you said, defensive tackle looked okay. Linebackers, I thought they were good. I thought Amari Campbell showed some good things as well. Um, I didn't think it was a great Dom DeLuca game per se, but I thought Tony Rojas played well. And it was nice to see Keon Wiley finally back out on the field.
Just the last thought there on the defensive line about Zariah Fisher. Sounds like Zariah Fisher was a game time decision. And so he wanted to go. They decided to hold him out. Yeah. So maybe we'll see him next week. It, to me, doesn't really make sense to play him next week. Maybe get him in for Villanova and get him a little bit back to speed, unless you think he can be ready to go 100% by Oregon, which I'd be a little bit surprised of. I wouldn't necessarily rush him back, but we'll see when they get Fisher back. I agree with you with the linebackers. I would say Dom DeLuca actually didn't have a great game. The one run by Chuba Purdy, Dom took a terrible angle. Maybe a little bit surprised by Purdy's speed, but had a terrible angle there. He was in quite a bit there at the end of the game in just a different position. So he was in there with the 3s and 4s, which maybe tells you where they feel some of those other linebackers are at, that they'd rather get DeLuca in at a different spot than necessarily somebody else. Keon Wiley, Franklin spoke about in the press conference today, mentioned that Wiley just wishes he would practice the way he plays and would go full out. So that's something maybe interesting to watch. But another point just about all of those guys in general that Franklin brought up is they got a lot of guys back from injury, from season injuries from a year ago. Cam Wallace played, Andrew Rappleyea played, Alonzo Ford played, and Keon Wiley played. So a lot of the guys that were out with season-ending injuries, they got back and they were able to contribute. The only thing else I wanted to mention, kind of as you go through those defense, I want to talk a little bit about the safeties. Obviously, Zakee Wheatley did what he usually does. He comes up with a fumble recovery. Yeah.
But if I cut out 1 sec, I'll be right back. I'm going to try to get it on my laptop here.
Okay.
I think I'm going to be able to. All right. Be right back. You keep going.
All right. Sean continues with some technological issues. What I was saying there and wrapping up my thought there is, yes, Zakee Wheatley had a fumble recovery. And yes, AJ Harris also had a fumble recovery. I felt like they played a lot of different players there in the secondary. No Zion Tracy. So we'll have to wait and see how long he's out for. But they played a lot. Like Lane played a ton. ABS was out there a ton. I thought, honestly, from a tackling perspective, Penn State did really well. I thought they tackled pretty well for week 1. Usually there's some sloppiness, there's some missed tackles. A couple of drives are extended just because of missed tackles. That didn't happen nearly as much this week. There was one that was glaring to me. Antoine Belgrave missed one that I was like, oof. And that led to a first down. But otherwise, overall, I was pretty happy with the way that the defense did tackling wise. One other random note that I just wanted to mention, I think linebacker Anthony Specca, who we've been really high on for quite some time, I just don't know if he's fast enough. I just don't know if he's fast enough to play at this level. It felt like Chuba Purdy's not the fastest guy in college football. Now he's a good test, and I think it was good for this defense to face somebody like that. But you got to start wondering like whether or not Specca has the speed to play in modern college football. Would he have been great maybe 8 years ago? Potentially. But would he be able to be a starter, say, in 2026? I'm starting to get really concerned about Anthony Specca's speed. And let's see now if we can bring back in Sean.
Yes,
Sean,
sir.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Look at that. Sean, I think you were able to hear me as I was talking about Anthony Specca there. Any thoughts on that?
What were you saying? I couldn't hear you.
I was just saying I felt like he might be a little too slow to be able to be a starter at this level.
I think there needs to be more to be seen. I think people would have said similar about Dom DeLuca, and to be fair, I think some of those questions are still there with Dom, But I think Specca's probably a tad slower than DeLuca. But like I said, I want to just see more of him before I could say that definitively. But I understand the concern.
The other thing I mentioned the safeties and Dewan Lane and Antoine Belgrave Shorter playing a bunch. No Zion Tracy. Mentioned obviously the two fumble recoveries by the secondary. All in all, though, Sean, I was just talking about the lack of sloppiness when it comes to tackling. I mentioned ABS's one missed tackle that was pretty bad, but otherwise, Sean, the tackling has been was pretty solid for a week 1 game.
I thought it was a pretty clean game all around. We didn't get penalized much either. There was the controversial penalty at the end. But outside of that, I think we played a pretty clean game. I do think with the safeties, Corey, does it seem like outside of Zakee Wheatley, of course, seem like they don't overly trust a lot of these guys? Like, did you get that vibe that they're not fully committed to any of them? Like one of those, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. Maybe if you have 3 safeties, 3 strong safeties, you don't have a strong safety.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, Antoine Belgrave, Shorter is the starter, but I don't think being the starter in that position means anything. Like, yeah, you get to go out there first, but if you think you're going to be able to settle and just relax, that's not going to happen. They're going to get a lot of different guys in, especially over these next couple of weeks. And just because you're the starter to start the season, I don't think it's going to matter at all to Jim Knowles, say when it's time for him to figure out who he wants the starter to be for Oregon. So I agree with that. A lot of them played today. Franklin mentioned this. They got 73 guys into the game. A lot of them over 20 plus snaps. So just wanted to mention that a ton of guys played, and I expect that to continue over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's good to get good tape for all these guys. I thought a lot of the backups played pretty good too. You consider Nevada kept their starters in after we had put a lot of our backups in, and a lot of that's understandable for both sides. I could understand why Nevada would want to see how their guys would do against a team like Penn State and their backups. So sometimes I think that's a bit of an unwritten rule that you don't really do that, but I don't think it really applies when you're playing a mid-major. I think you get it. You get that. They got to get some work into. And yeah, I mean, if you want to pivot back to the offense for a second too, the second team offense had an awesome drive against their starting defense. And I thought Grunk looked very, very, very comfortable. That was the thing that really stood out to me with him is just like, remember the first play, there was a rusher that got in and he just moved around the pocket well and dumped it off to the running back. And it's a small thing, but it's something you want to be able to see from your backup quarterback, that they're able to not panic if everything's not perfect right in front of them on the line.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I thought Grunkmeyer played great there. I thought just his ability to get that ball out, right? I think Franklin harped on that quite a bit. Just getting the ball out and living for another day, or in a lot of cases, having a big explosive play, whether it was a Cam Wallace or a Rappleyea. Like that's what he's looking to see. And I thought it was interesting. Franklin made the comment that Grunkmeyer doesn't necessarily like he looked better than he, sometimes does even in practice. So I think that was something interesting to kind of maybe keep an eye on moving forward. Is does Grunkmeyer continue to get more and more confidence as we kind of move forward in this, call it 3-game preseason, so to speak. We talked about field goal kicking quite a bit. I just want to give a shout out to Darius Dixon on the kickoff. That was a hell of a hit, a splattering. I don't know how that guy's kneecap didn't shatter into oblivion. That was just an amazing hit. Has you pretty excited about what Dixon's going to bring. Like, I think that mentality right there is all I needed to see from Darius Dixon. Like, I'm excited as hell for that guy. Stock just raised tremendously on him.
Yeah. I think if you're buying stock right now in any of these future guys, like these freshmen, Darius Dixon's right at the top of the list. Jim Knowles has spoken really glowingly about him. Jim Knowles doesn't seem like the type of guy that just gives out praise willy-nilly. So that's really encouraging. And yeah, he looks physically like he belongs there. So yeah, I thought Darius Dixon looked very good. I thought Tyser Denmark did some nice things as well. I know Corey's going to have some thoughts on another receiver that's in front of him.
We have a fan question about it, so I'm going to hold off to the fan question.
For then. Kobe Howard did get in, didn't have a catch, but he was in there with Denmark and Clifford at the end. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about the future there. And I thought the backups on defense played well. I know they gave up a touchdown late, but I thought overall they played pretty well, especially against Purdy. The backups actually stopped their starters, but then their backups scored on our backups.
Yeah, and there were some things definitely to clean up from that. Last thing I wanted to mention before we go to the fan questions, Gabe Nwosu, obviously the kickoff specialist, was listed as a starting punter, was asked about it today, confirmed he is the starting punter over Riley Thompson. So has earned it. Franklin had some seriously high praise for him, said that he's the closest thing to Jordan Stout that the program's had. Mentioned also that he was in the running for the place kicking duties. Said he hit a 62-yard field goal in Beaver Stadium during one of their scrimmages. So kind of a surprise there, but Gabe Nwosu, who he said had like his best punts were better than everyone else's for a long time, but it was about the consistency. And he's been able to get the consistency down. So something to watch. Penn State did not punt on Saturday, but something to watch at some point this season. Penn State will punt the football.
Well, not necessarily, Corey. Maybe we'll just score every play, every drive.
I love that Franklin mentioned that too. Like they hadn't punted. And there was an opportunity, actually could have potentially saved Penn State from giving up a touchdown if they would have punted. They went for it on like a 4th and 3 at midfield, which I understand they always do that, like see if they can end the game on their terms. But if they really wanted to give him a chance to punt, they could have given him a chance to punt. They probably would have kept Nevada out of the end zone. So, yes, Penn State didn't punt, but they had a 4th and 3 late where they totally could have, and nobody would have, batted an eye at it.
Yeah, because I don't think we've ever seen Gabe actually punt before. I remember during pregame introductions on the big board. I don't know if you were in the stadium at that point, Corey. I may have had a couple beers. and you heard Gabe Nwosu, introduce himself, and then he introduced himself again. I was like, huh, that's a little weird, and there's no Riley Thompson, so is this them trying to tell us that Gabe's the punter? And then sure enough, turns out Gabe's the punter. So it's a guy who's been here a long, long time. And he is the kickoff specialist, and he's been the kickoff specialist, I believe, since 2022 or 3. So he's been here quite a bit. And to see him, and that just shows you too, like if you stay the course, good things could happen for you. And they do, just because you're an older guy doesn't mean you can't win a job later in your career here. So happy for him. Thompson is still the holder for field goals and extra points, so he's still going to have a role here. But yeah, Gabe is the starting punter for at least for now.
All right, Sean, did you want to add anything before we go to the fan questions, which I think will help guide us as well? But
yeah, we could turn to the fans.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm just chomping at the bit here. Let's go with Brian's question first. He asks, can we please stop ever playing Clifford, especially in garbage time when our youngins need reps? Brian, this is a great question. And to be clear, this is not my burner account. I did not post this question to ourselves. Although I think what Brian says here is a great question. And it has nothing to do whether or not you like Clifford. It really comes down to, if Clifford is who he is at this point in his career, why are we not getting more reps to other folks that maybe haven't proved what their ceiling is? And I think we all know what Clifford's ceiling is. Maybe his floor isn't very low, but his ceiling isn't much higher. That's a one-story building. Brian, answer your question. I don't know why they can't stop. Franklin specifically mentioned that he was trying to get everybody a touch. He got Rappleyea some touches. He got Dinkins some touches. He got Tyseer Denmark, which was a great catch. He got a catch. They tried to get the ball to Liam Clifford, and he dropped it. Kind of a momentum killing for a little bit there. Even on Rappley's nice catch and run, he blocked somebody in the back. And so now I'm starting to wonder, well, it's one thing if Clifford isn't hurting the team, but he can at least do some things right. It's another thing if he can't even do like the simple things right and he hurts the team. So I don't get it. I don't see how he's valuable to be out there. And I don't think, especially in these first 3 games, he should be playing very much, because there are other guys that we're more curious to see their potential of. We know what Clifford is. Why do we need to see him any more than we already have? So if he wants to get some, snaps in when he rotates with Devontae Ross as Devontae Ross gets healthy, great. I'm fine with that. But in the third and fourth quarter, blowouts against FIU, Nevada, and Villanova, I don't need to see Clifford to get a catch just to get a catch. There's no value add to that. And he ends up actually hurting the team in the process. So I'm with you, Brian. I don't quite understand it. I have no problem if he happens to get a catch here and there during the actual, when the game is still in doubt. But in garbage time, there's no reason they'd be getting Clifford the football.
Yeah, I think they're more so trying to get him some confidence, and everybody could have a catch. And, when he dropped the ball, I think I already have a disappointed dad voice. I just go, catch the ball, Liam. And then he does the legal block in the back, and I literally go, oh, Liam.
Like, how quickly did you realize that? Oh yeah, Corey's gonna say something about this.
Oh, instantly. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a discussion on the pod. I knew after the drop it was, and then when the block in the back happened, I was like, oh no, we're gonna spend like 5 minutes on Liam Clifford now.
Yeah,
but no, I mean, I get what you're saying though, especially at the end of games. The thing is, like, he's gonna have a role on this team. They love Liam, they just do. I think though I think it's time though to start having the discussion, like, why is Tyseer Denmark still behind him? Like, why? I could understand Kobe Howard because he just got here,
Right.
But why is Tysier Denmark still behind him? I think that's a valid question. Maybe somebody could ask that in a diplomatic way that Franklin would answer.
Yeah. I think that'd be a very good question. Mark Thomas asks, pick your poison on either of these questions. So Sean, maybe you answer one, I'll answer the other one. I'll let you choose though. So this first question, any concerns at the other defensive end spot? We kind of answered that already, so maybe we just move on. He says, might be nitpicking, and it's only week 1. Do we expect the running lanes to be a bit bigger? Offensive line felt like there's still some gelling to be done. So actually, Mark, we kind of answered both of your questions. I would say, though, in general, if I had to be more concerned about the offensive line gelling or the defensive end spot, maybe I'll kind of combine your questions into one. I'm more concerned about the defensive end spot than I am about the offensive line gelling.
Me too. Yeah, me too. Offensive line's going to be fine, I think. I know those guys could play. Those other defensive ends, I have no idea if they could play. I think they're talented, but I don't know if they're going to be ready to get starters minutes this year.
Yeah, simple as that. Thank you, Mark, for the question. We will go now to Randy Seeley, who says, is Nevada potentially a bowl-eligible team by the end of the season? This question, we get this question sometimes. I remember 2 years ago when we played Villanova, and it was Delaware, actually, when we played Delaware. This Delaware team's really good. It's okay that we struggled with them. I don't know that's what Randy's going at here. I do think Chuba Purdy's going to cause problems for people. I think he's very quick, very fast. He just has no support around him whatsoever. Also, Nevada played a very let's not lose this by 100 game, as far as how they called it. So I don't really know how Nevada's going to play against everybody else, but I really don't think it's probably fair to make that kind of figure that out right now. What I can say, though, is I think they're a good team. More importantly, I think they are well coached. And I think that's going to go a long way for them. I don't know if they'll be able to figure it all out. They're an interesting team because of the amount of transfer portal additions they have. But I would say they would be a fun team to watch if you're watching Mountain West football, just because of the good coaching. And I think Chuba Purdy is going to be fun to watch. But potentially, I'd be comfortable saying that.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me was you could tell that they're well coached. They competed. They didn't look very intimidated by Penn State either, which I've seen a lot of teams come in here and they just kind of have the deer in the headlights look. You didn't really see that from Nevada. They came out looking to, they're having a nice first drive there until the fumble, but they were looking efficient. I think Chuba is going to be a pain in the ass to deal with in the Mountain West, just because he has that athletic ability. And they run a lot of pre-snaps motion, a lot of eye candy that I think could drive some defense coordinators out there kind of crazy. I guess if I would say one thing, now they're going against Zane Durant, but they could not block Zane Durant at all. One of the reasons Denai had such a good game was there's constant penetration from the inside. So I don't know if that will continue in the Mountain West, or if that just shows you how good our defensive line is, and maybe they'll be fine. But there were a few times that I think Chuba probably should have handed it off, but he really couldn't because there was nowhere to go. So they ran a lot of RPO, but there was really nothing for him to do. So overall, to answer your question, yes, I think there's potential, but it's hard to say after you play against a team like Penn State, just because there's such a talent gap there.
Yeah, and maybe I want to go back because I wanted to mention this earlier. I thought Jim Knowles called a great game for the most part. Once they figured out what the plan was, which is basically just Purdy running for his life. But, I mean, they put Dennis-Sutton in the spy, and they had Zane Durant lined up outside, which I thought was really interesting and fun. So they're going to maybe not to the level of Manny Diaz, but they're going to have some fun causing some havoc in a lot of different ways. So just continue to watch that. Nevada's offensive
Did that
tackles
surprise you at all?
a little bit with that,
Like
to
the
be honest with
creativity
you.
from Knowles? Yeah, because I did see some Manny there that I didn't expect.
Yes, they did some good nickel blitzes too. Colin Dinkins blitzed a little bit as well. But Nevada had 2 new offensive tackles, and they struggled tremendously for obvious reasons. So I think that would be, I agree with Sean, that's definitely a concern. It's so hard, though, in a game like this on the road to really get a good judge for really how good they may or may not be. Mudbug says, how was it getting into the stadium with the changes? Looked empty at kickoff and definitely filled in, but worried about entry delays. Sean, please go first, and then I'm going to rip into the students. But you please go ahead.
You know what? I didn't think it was that bad. Now, we did go up a little bit early because, wife's pregnant, and we were up in SFU, which is way up at the top. We actually took the escalators to the well, I'll start on the outside. They had they basically rerouted you to gate B. I didn't think it was that bad, to be completely honest. Took the escalators up to about the club section, and then we walked the ramp the rest of the way. We got there at 2. We were in our seats by about 2:30. So overall, I didn't think it was that bad, but I was also there a little bit early. We also wanted to see my wife wanted to see the drum major. It's the first female drum major, so she wanted to see her and watch the blue band. So yeah, that was. I didn't think it was that bad. Also, I know a lot of people said that the Wi-Fi was working, not where I sat, at least. But again, we're kind of all the way up in no man's land. So, and the audio system is still not very, very good. So there are some critiques I have of the reconstruction, but overall, I did think I will say I did think that the bleachers looked presentable. I could see what they're going for with the final result. I know those aren't going to be the permanent bleachers, but I could definitely see what they're going to be going for. But Corey, I think you're going to have hotter takes than I will here.
No, and I agree with everything you said. I think it was your first time in Beaver Stadium. I think it would be hard to tell like things were out of place. I think they did a really good job in making it seem pretty solid. And I didn't have any issues getting in. I think I actually got in easier, even though I didn't get to the stadium until like 3:15. So I was relatively late getting in. No, my real problems are more about, just to be completely honest with everybody, more really about the students. Noon game against Nevada, I can kind of understand it. But the student section was not even close to being filled at 3:30. Took really until about 4:15, 4:30 before it was completely full. I know this is the first game. A lot of people, students especially, a quarter of them are figuring out things for the first time. And so it's a mess over there. So I'm going to give them a little bit of grace. But this team has national championship expectations. And that was a pretty piss poor performance for a 3:30 kick. I don't expect it to be any better for FIU. So disappointed there, but not surprised. I didn't have any issues getting in. But I will say also, my section, I don't know if everyone just sells their tickets. We never have any regulars around us. So we have like maybe 2 or 3 regulars. Everyone else is always new people, which I think is a little interesting. Also, shout out to Penn State. I did not have my seat back. We had one, but we did not have our other one. So that's cool too. Thank you for that, Penn State.
That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, not comfortable. Just FYI.
Yeah, when you're sitting on the prison bleachers.
Yeah, and you're paying for it, right? Like that's
yeah, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. I have not spoken with anyone about it yet, so I'm sure they'll be accommodating, but we'll see. Last fan question from Cowboy Ribeye, kind of a fun one. Sean, would you rather fight Dennis-Sutton or Abdul Carter?
I think Denai seems a little nicer, so I'll go Dennis-Sutton.
Wow. See, I'm the complete opposite. I think Dennis-Sutton looks like he would murder me immediately for no reason.
You think so?
Yes.
I think Denai
Did you
seems
see
really
that man?
nice.
He looked possessed
On the field, though. On the field, no. But yeah, maybe. Yeah, I would go DDS, but I don't know. I think they would both kick my ass pretty thoroughly. So
I think I could maybe praise Abdul Carter, maybe convince him
a little bit.
Right. I think Dennis-Sutton would just pound me into oblivion.
If you had to pick one guy on the team to fight, not a kicker or punter, who would it be?
Liam Clifford.
I knew you were going to say that.
Besides Liam Clifford, I don't know. Is somebody injured right now that I would feel good about?
Oh, so you have to fight an injured guy.
You didn't say they couldn't be injured. You just said,
yeah, no kickers or punters, because everybody's answer would just be the kicker.
But what about you, Sean?
Probably one of the smaller freshmen. Yeah, I guess I'll
picking on freshmen. That's not much better.
I guess I'll go. Who's the receiver that's looks good, but he's thin still? But he's 6'4", so no, not him.
Otten?
Lyric Otten? Samuel. Yeah. No, not Matthew Otten. But yeah, Lyric Samuel's 6'4". I guess I'd go Liam too.
Okay. Liam Clifford's gonna whoop both of our asses now.
Yeah, that's the thing. He'd also kick my ass, but
it's a great question.
But I'm just looking for my best odds here.
All right, we got through the fan questions. Just a friendly reminder, please, wherever you're listening, make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe as well. It helps us out. It's completely free. Would help us tremendously. Sean, we're going to be back on a Wednesday to preview FIU. Anything you want to just mention about FIU or any final thoughts on Nevada?
Yeah, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what the great Joe Paterno always said: you get better the most between week 1 and week 2. I feel like that's my quote. I have to say it.
Inject it, baby.
So yes, I'm looking for that. I think a team like FIU, you have to remember where they play. They play right in Florida, right in southern Florida. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of guys that, for one reason or another, don't end up at Miami, don't end up at playing for the Gators or the Seminoles, but they do go to schools like FIU. So there's a lot of talent there. They recruit heavily from that area. So there's going to be some real athletes that we play on Saturday. And I think it'll be a nice little challenge, just like this one was. We got to look at motion offenses. We have to look at a motion offense this week. I think you're going to see a step up in athleticism a bit. So, yeah, I think that's before really getting into FIU and really looking at them specifically. That's kind of my first impressions with them.
Franklin had a lot to say about Willie Simmons and the job he's been able to do there. I've known him for quite some time. They're bringing back some dogs. Their quarterback, running back tandem are good. And so I think Florida International will do some good things, not just against Penn State, but I think they could do some good stuff in a Conference USA. I was trying to find Conference USA odds. CUSA to win betting odds. I want to say they were up there at the start of the season. Let's see here. Yeah. Am I messing this up?
I think it's so hard to predict mid-major conferences because they have so much turnover from one year to another with the portal. Like, I think the portal really puts teams like FIU at a disadvantage and Nevada at a disadvantage because they have a guy play really, really well. And then a team like Penn State comes in like we did for Devontae Ross, Troy, and then they're at Penn State. And I think that happens to a lot of these schools. So I think it's hard to predict these conferences from one year to another.
For sure, yeah, they're just constantly changing. Last thing, Sean, before we get out of here. Some upsets around college football. Alabama losing to Florida State. Tarleton State beating Army. But
Our old boss called that game.
Yes. But nothing, Sean, was as beautiful, as pristine as the Miami Hurricanes taking down Notre Dame 27-24 in Miami. And it made me think, because I wasn't going to lead the show with this because I don't think it's worth my time to lead the show with this, but I've got to just say that it did me much pleasure to watch former running back coach Jaywan Sider, who lost in Miami to Notre Dame, then joined Notre Dame for a lateral position, just to lose in Miami again by the exact same score. And oh, by the way, the best running back tandem room in the country finished with this awesome stat line of 94 yards on 3.5 yards per carry. And the only rushing touchdown was by the quarterback. And apparently the best running back in the country, Jeremiah Love, with 10 carries for 33 yards. So I'm happy today. I'm very happy today.
As am I. There's Notre Dame is maybe the greatest team to hate watch, especially now with Jaywan Sider going there. And Corey, what have we said about Jaywan Sider for years? He's a great recruiter, not a great developer of talent. Just really isn't. And I said that longtime listeners of the podcast know this isn't me with sour grapes. This is a critique that I have long had of Jaywan Sider. And yes, you know, I thought Notre Dame's offensive line, it's often compared to Penn State, seen as right there with Penn State as the best one, you know, in the country. I don't think either of them looked like the best offensive line in the country this past weekend, but Notre Dame really couldn't block Miami. So I think that could be a problem going forward. Notre Dame, of course, plays an easy schedule. They have A&M next week. I do think I think they'll probably win that game because I'm not very big on A&M. I need to see it from them before I crown them with anything. But then Notre Dame really doesn't play anybody for the rest of the year except maybe USC. USC did look good this weekend, but they played Scranton High School. So it's hard to really get a gauge on how good USC is going to be. And look, I would love to meet Notre Dame again in the playoffs because I think I would like our chances against them. Also, I want to brag a little bit that I totally called the Ohio State-Texas game. I feel like I am one of the only people that have not crowned Arch Manning as the second coming of Christ. And he played poorly on Saturday.
Very poorly.
He played worse than I thought he'd play. I thought he'd be a good quarterback, but he looked awful. So we'll see if he improves. But Ohio State looks like they have a good defense again, guys. Just gotta put that out there. We do play them in November. I will say, though, do I think they're unbeatable? No, because their offense did not look very promising. Like, if Texas had any remote offense at all, Texas would have won the game. But Texas just couldn't get out of their own way. And like I said, part of that is a credit to Ohio State and how well they played.
Sean, you deserve to be able to stand on that pedestal. I was wrong. I was impressed by Ohio State's defense, and yeah, you deserve that. I have not done the pick'em yet as of 8:50 Eastern on Monday. Expect that to be out. I'm gonna give myself till noon tomorrow morning to get that out for week 2. So, give me till Tuesday at noon to get that out, and that's that. Sean, I have not. Oh, just FYI, I plan to be on Zach Seiko's Locked On Nittany Lions tomorrow night. So I don't know when that will be posted, but I'll be returning the favor there tomorrow. And then we will just need to make sure we have a guest scheduled for Wednesday. But otherwise, Sean, that's all I have. Do you have anything else to add?
I think we're good. Yeah, I will see you on Wednesday.
Awesome. A friendly reminder,
Wednesday at 7?
please. Yeah, 7:00. Friendly reminder, we will just looking for you guys to share the podcast with a friend. Make sure, again, you've liked the video and to subscribe, whether it's on podcast or on YouTube. And if you happen to rate us 5 stars or drop us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we'll read the 5-star review on the show. We'll get back to doing that as well. So those are always usually pretty fun to do. So for Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoki. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Thank you guys all for hanging out on YouTube, and we will see you on Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.